Recorded. We'll begin our panel discussion. Go ahead, Jimmy.
Good evening, everybody. Good evening. I am loving the energy. Can you make some noise for cocktails and conversations? Can we also make some noise for our great panelists, Joey, Anthony, and Luz as well? Let's give them a hand again. We also want to acknowledge the Dewey Square Group, the New England Aquarium, and those that help put this event together. We are definitely glad to be here. This is our second year here, part of the fierce urgency of now that's going on as well. So we also want to mention them, but we only have a few minutes. The planners thought it was important that we allow you to continue with your conversations and maybe the cocktails as well. And so we're just going to talk for a few minutes with our panelists. And I'm going to start with Joey and ask you what makes you enjoy and appreciate spaces and places like this. And because we have a short time, I'm going to ask our panelists as much as possible to keep their answers as brief as possible. But Joey, please introduce yourself and also answer the question around what makes a space like this enjoyable for you.
Hi, everyone. I'm Joy Williams, again, the co-founder of the Boston Harbor Women of Color Coalition. The Boston Harbor Women of Color Coalition is a solution-oriented group, a supportive group of people who identify as women of color who work on or for the Boston Harbor Islands, and our work to bring our communities, especially communities of color, out to green and blue spaces. That's a big question. I'm going to try to keep it brief and answer that with letting you know what my favorite outdoor space is.
Listen, tell us.
Boston Harbor has 13 beaches that run along it, from Lynn, Nahant to Nantasket and Hull. And one of my favorite outdoor spaces is Nantasket Beach. I've been going there since I was a kid. My mom, since she was a kid. My grandmother's been taking us there. We have our memorials there every September. Like, it's a big part of my life. So that's kind of an outdoor space that I'm really passionate about. That's been a part of my life, and that me and my family work to make sure that it's inclusive and accessible to all people, because it hasn't always been that way.
So it's being with family for you that makes it enjoyable in that 100%. Space particularly.
Of being with family, being with community that has like closely become like family, like, yes, definitely.
Absolutely. Anthony, you work with crew and work very hard around the inclusivity and also diversity. But for you as an individual, what makes a space like this? Yes, it's part of the job, but I also know you and know you don't take on anything that it doesn't share the values of the Davis system. And so for you, what makes spaces like this enjoyable, whether it's on the water, being in conversations like this on the water, what makes spaces like this for you enjoyable?
Yeah, well, personally, as you said, I get a lot out of being in community and being with folks in community. And for spaces like these to be curated, I know for the organizers of this event that it wasn't easy to pull together. But it's worth it. It's worth it to provide spaces that are free and accessible to everyone in the city. And that the organizers of the event did a great job of making sure that they brought people in to also make sure that this event was exposed to new crowds. I think one of the things that's most important and why these spaces are so important is because historically they haven't existed. There haven't been these spaces along the waterfront traditionally and historically have felt very exclusive and very excluded. And so for today's event to be both open to the public, free to the public, and inclusive of everyone in the public is just an amazing step and a huge step forward in just making our waterfronts more inclusive and more resilient as well.
Absolutely. If you would allow me to, I heard family. Would you agree? You know, I'm always doing one word. Would you agree with accessibility?
Community would be my word.
Community would be your word, absolutely. Yep. Okay, Luz, for you, you have the opportunity, you work here at the New England Aquarium, so you get to see this space basically every day. What makes this space or these types of spaces enjoyable for you? I also just want to say thank you for opening up the doors. There's Rick and Lauren and other folks that are here that work at the aquarium, but thank you for opening up this space 2 years in a row, if not more, that we've done this with sort of the Waterfront Wellness Week and different things like that. So simply, what makes spaces like this enjoyable for you?
Yeah, thank you. And thank you everyone for making it out despite the rain. I know it's really coming down out there. I think what's really special about both the aquarium and Boston in general is it's an old city and there's a lot of history here, but that doesn't mean that we can't create new spaces and new experiences. I know at least here in Central Wharf, something we think about a lot is how to activate our plaza. Obviously, we want people to come into our building and visit, but we have so much space in the plaza to activate and for people to really enjoy, whether it's art installations or activities like this. And so it's been really exciting to see what new things we can curate as an institution and with the city.
Absolutely. Anthony, you talked a little bit, I'm going to start with you this time. You talked about community, and if I could ask you, there's spaces like the waterways, like the spaces like Charles River. We often talk, and you all have taught me from crew, it's either, what's the final number, 41, 42, 47? What's the final mileage of Boston?
46.
46, okay. So along the 46 miles, what makes spaces like these, you talk about community, what would make them more inviting, more exciting, and back to that word, more accessible? From your experience, what would do that?
Yeah, well, I think hosting events like today's is very important. And like I said earlier, it's a huge step in that progress in making events both free and accessible to the community. But then I think also working in partnership with communities and organizations that have historically felt left out of conversations and events on the waterfront. That's one of the things that the coalition really focuses on. We are a coalition of now over 60 nonprofit organizations across the greater Boston area. And what we do is bring together organizations that have been historically focused on waterfront issues and combine them, bring them into collaboration with organizations that have historically been left out of that conversation or who have historically been seen as heart of the city organizations that their geography isn't worried about the waterfront or fixed on the waterfront. And so we leave them out of those conversations. And then we also, as a result, leave them out of opportunities like these. We leave them out of these spaces. We know, and we talk a lot about with the coalition, how restorative being along the waterfront can be, but it's also preventative. Being by water actually has been cited as a scientific fact to reduce the rate of suicide. And so just being out by water can help prevent some of the issues that we see in our communities. But when we don't bring the resources, when we don't make these accessible, then there are communities that are going to be harmed as a result of a lack of access to these spaces.
Absolutely. And Luz, from past conversations and just events like this, I know that you share. And the New England Aquarium, I'm going to frame the question a little bit different to you. How is the New England Aquarium working to be more inclusive, to be more diverse? There are some preliminary conversations going on around some things, but can you talk specifically to the aquarium? I've been to a couple of events here. You guys hosted the NAACP chairman's reception. And so can you talk a little bit from the aquarium's perspective about how they're incorporating diversity, inclusion, and equity?
Yeah, absolutely. And our chief of DEI is here in the room, so I definitely don't want to steal from her expertise.
Is that the Miss Lauren Hunter?
It is.
I mean, we don't have the ability to pan over, but she could just pop in the scene and just say hello if she would like to, but you can get me for that later.
Yeah,
Go ahead, Luz.
But I know from my experience in working with Lauren and the team, something we really prioritize is making sure we're building trust within community. It's important to me personally, but also to the organization that we're not just dropping into a community, gathering what we need, and disappearing forever. It's really about starting from square one and learning about what people throughout the city and really the state want from our institution, from our waterfront, and more. And making sure that's a mutually beneficial relationship that continues, not just in that one instance. And so events like today, and you're right, we hosted the NAACP event, things like that have grown out of really natural relationships like that. And we hope to keep learning from the community and making sure that, you know, things like climate change, flooding, which I think part of the Harbor Walk flooded a little bit today, not still now, making sure people are aware that that is happening and how everybody can be involved, not just the normal people who are always at the table.
Luz, thank you for that. Joey, based on Luz's response, let me ask you, I'll deviate a little bit. How important is it, Luz mentioned climate change, and I'll just be very authentic that oftentimes in communities of color, it's not perceived as an issue sometimes. And so how important is it that Black and brown people not only contribute to the redesign of everything that's going on in this area, but how important is it that we prioritize paying attention to that issue around climate change, around the impact of flooding? It just doesn't happen here. Morrissey Boulevard, Talbot Ave, in Dorchester. And so how important is it that this be a priority for Black and brown people?
It's absolutely crucial for Black and brown people, people of color, specifically women of color, to be in leadership positions in these conversations. The coalition prides itself on having such a diverse, multi-generational, career diverse, 150 members who are out here doing this work, and how we support that. So they are at the forefront, and these spaces need to be reflective of what these communities actually look like. So there needs to be people of color in those spaces. There needs to be women of color. Indigenous knowledge is the foundation of addressing the climate crisis. So these are acknowledgements that we that are absolutely crucial.
I love how she said indigenous knowledge is
Indigenous knowledge is the foundation
of addressing climate change.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, I got to stay focused. We're getting ready to wrap up because we only have a few minutes left. So Luz, I would like to start with you. I know this is going to be interesting for all three of you. Luz, if you were to close your eyes and had all of the resources in the world at your disposal, money, materials, indigenous knowledge, what does the harbor in this area look like for you 5 years from now? And describe it however you want.
All the resources in the world.
All the resources in the any and everything you wanted. What does the harbor look like?
Oh gosh, I guess the first word that comes to mind is activated. And I think that's water transit. I think it's events and recreation, research and science. I think there's so many angles to look at it, but really a 24/7 round the clock engagement of the harbor, and not just you're coming for one use and you leave. So multi-use, activated. Yeah.
I heard 24/7 use of the harbor, like that would be, you talk about accessibility. Joey, same for you. 5 years, if you had all of the resources at your disposal, what does the harbor look like? And you don't have to just talk about like what it looks like physically, but what's the participation? What's the, advantages, the benefits coming out of the harbor, however you see it?
I have to say, with the 150 members we have working in all facets of climate change, from rising sea level to the heat, to the physical infrastructure of our city and how that is accessible for everyone. I'm just really excited to see what our members, how we continue to support and create opportunities for them, continue to support the work they're already doing. Like, I'm really excited to see the impacts that are going to happen, the increase in impacts in water safety and programming and policy and advocacy that will touch and make sure that we are making the systemic changes that need to be made.
When you said water safety, I was reminded of my, and you all can clap and make noise. I meant to tell you that. Did you bring anybody here with you from the coalition? I just want to know.
Let me just shout out real quick. I have my co-founder here, Maya Smith, who is also Director of Partnership and Program Development at Save the Harbor. Our program coordinator, Maria Rodriguez Ortega, who is also getting her master's in environmental policy right now. We have our strategic advisor, Charlene, here. We have Kelly here. We have
you just got the crew with you.
Yeah,
we got the crew. Okay.
Because they're in these spaces.
Listen, before we go to Anthony, I got to give Luz her props too. Luz, did you bring anybody with you from the aquarium? And I'm going to make some noise for Luz.
Thank you.
Oh, she's a member too. Okay, all right. We got it. Well, I need TDS to get ready to be ready. No, I'm messing. Anthony, did you bring anybody with you as well?
Yeah, we have the coalition team with us. We have a table in the back corner as well.
It's a collaborative effort. Everyone gets along up here. Anthony, for you, what does the harbor look like 5 years from now? You're involved with crew. You're a Black man in this city. You come from a city that is surrounded by water, and so you see it different. You experience a different level of diversity and inclusion. 5 years from now, what does this harbor look like?
The harbor looks like, I like the word activated, but I'll choose inviting. That it's inviting in terms of it's a place where I can come and get an affordable meal, I can find a free activity, and it's accessible.
Free parking? No, I'm missing.
That might be a dream, free parking, but
All the resources.
that it's accessible. And when we talk about accessibility, I think we need to talk about accessibility in terms of mobility accessibility. But then another big issue that we hear a lot about with the coalition is signage. Why don't we have signage in multiple different languages along the waterfront? So when I think about inviting, I think about it's inviting, but it's also accessible for folks to know how to navigate around the waterfront, know what activities are available for them, and that there are affordable and free activities that are happening here, and that it feels like a more inclusive space as well.
Absolutely. We're going to get ready to wrap up. Can we give our panelists a hand? Joey, Anthony, and Luz, if for those that are watching on social media, if folks wanted to reach you, can you quickly say your website?
Yes, we are at bhwocc.org. Also BHWOCC on Instagram. That's all you need to know.
No Twitter? No Twitter?
No Twitter yet. No
Not
Twitter
yet.
yet. We
Okay.
started 2021. We're working on it.
Okay. Anthony, sir, how can folks reach you?
Our website is the Boston Waterfront Coalition.com. We are on Instagram at the Boston Waterfront Coalition. We're on Facebook at the Boston Waterfront, and we are on Twitter at the Waterfront Coalition.
Okay. And also, Luz, how can folks reach you here at the New England Aquarium as well?
Yeah, so our website is neaq.org. I'll spare you from trying to spell my last name, but we're on all the socials, organizationally and personally, and I'll be floating around, so come chat.
Can we give our panelists another hand? We are getting ready to turn you back into the hands of our DJ. Remember, and Anthony always says this, or I've heard I think you say this often, is try to introduce yourself to someone that you don't know, and create different types of conversations. Don't forget, there's the opportunity, I believe, up here for you to sort of write your vision, what you see for the harbor and waterfront as well, to be posted over here. So please indulge in that as well. Help yourself to food and, of course, cocktails. And we're here for the next couple of hours or so. So thank you all for listening, and we turn you back over into the hands of, I believe, DJ Paul. Did I get it right?
Philly too early. It's close.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
Philly.
DJ Phil. Okay.
Thank you, John and Jimmy.
Thank you.
One more time to the panelists.